Welcome back to Special Educators Resource Room podcast. This is actually Jennifer from Positively Learning. I know my voice sounds different. I heard from you last week. What happened is I got a new podcast mic. It's actually a replacement of the exact same microphone that I had. I loved. Somehow my foot got caught in the cord. It crashed off my desk and I replaced it. But my voice to me now sounds so different. It just doesn't sound as friendly as I thought it did before. We'll see what happens. You'll have to let me know. Anyway, I'm so glad that you're here tuning in. This is a very important episode, and I thought it was a hot topic we should all discuss. I know you already saw the title. The topic is using AI in the IEP writing process. I want to start by telling you about a conversation I had a couple of months ago. It was a teacher, very experienced, very thoughtful, someone who is a fabulous teacher who cares about her students. She told me something that she said she hadn't said to anyone else. She was deep in IEP season, multiple meetings stacked back to back, everything due at the same time, and that feeling when you are just trying to get through the week. I'm sure you can relate. She needed a draft done before she could go home. So she opened an AI tool, typed in some information about the student, and asked it to draft the present levels. It took about 45 seconds. And she said her first thought was, it's not actually that bad. Then her second thought was, I hope no one ever finds out I did this. And the more I've had conversations like that, the more I realized this isn't a one-off story. This is showing up everywhere. The same relief, the same result, the same silence afterwards. So today we're just going to say it out loud. If you've used AI to help write an IEP or thought about it or seen it happening and didn't say anything, you're not alone. You're not a bad teacher, but it is a conversation that we need to have. Let's start with what's actually true, because I think a lot of teachers are carrying this quietly, like it's something they're not supposed to admit, when in reality, it's already everywhere. More than half of special education teachers are probably using AI tools in some part of the process. More than half. And no, I don't have actual numbers. I'm sure I could get that if I sat down and did a poll and some research. But when you think about it, it does make complete sense. If something can take a task that used to take hours and turn it into minutes, that's not just helpful. That feels like relief. And teachers I'm talking to, they're not trying to cut corners. They're just trying to keep up. They're managing caseloads, timelines, paperwork, meetings, all of it. I don't need to tell you that. It's a system that keeps asking for more. So I want to say this really clearly. If you've been using AI to draft something, to organize your thoughts, to get started when you're stuck, that makes sense. And that is not a problem. But there is something underneath that we do need to talk about. IEPs are supposed to be individualized, not kind of, not mostly, actually individualized. And AI, by design, is built on patterns. It generates language that sounds right. It pulls from what's been written before. It fills in the shape of something. And those two things don't naturally line up. Now, if a teacher is using AI as a starting point and then really reading through it, adjusting it, checking it against the actual student, that's still professional work. But here's the question that keeps coming up in these Facebook conversations. I'm going to say it because I know teachers might be thinking it. Is that what's actually happening every time? Or are there moments, especially when you're feeling overwhelmed, where you look at it, tweak 5 words or less, and then move on because you just need to get it done? Because if that's what's happening, and I think we all know it is sometimes, then we do need to pause for a second. Because IEPs are not just paperwork. It's not just a document. It's something that caregivers read and they trust. And it's something you sign your name to. It's something that's supposed to reflect your professional judgment. And when it starts to feel like something that could apply to any student, that's where things get a little off. Not because anyone meant for that to happen, but because the conditions made it really easy for it to happen. So let's talk about what this can actually look like when it is working. Because I don't think the answer is don't use AI. I think the answer is don't let it replace your thinking. And I don't think anybody intentionally set out to do that. From what I've seen, the teachers who do feel good about how they're using it are usually doing things a little bit differently. First, they already know the student. They're not asking AI to figure out the child. They're asking it to help organize what they already know. And second, they treat what AI gives them like a draft, not a final answer. They read through the results and think, would I actually say this in a meeting? Does this actually sound like the student? And if it doesn't, then they change it. And third, the goals don't come from the tool, but the wording might. But the direction, the priority, what actually matters for that student, that's coming from the teacher, from what you've seen, from conversations with the family, from real data. Because no tool can sit in a meeting and hear a parent say, I just want them to be able to do this one thing on their own. That part is still human. And of course, there's one more piece we can't skip over in this conversation: confidentiality. Because when you're using any kind of AI tool, you have to assume that what you're typing in is not private in the way your school systems are. So that means no student names, no identifying details, no information you wouldn't feel comfortable being seen outside of your classroom or your team. I know that sounds obvious, but I still have to say it. Even if we are using AI in the most thoughtful way, we still have to protect students first, always. And let's circle back to the teacher at the beginning of this episode, the one who said, nobody can ever know I did this. I don't think that she was feeling guilt about the tool. I think it was more a feeling of, this isn't how it's supposed to work, but I don't know how else to keep up. And that is so real. The system didn't create space for thoughtful work. It created pressure for fast work. But at the end of the day, your name is still on that document. And your students are not patterns, and they're not templates. They're not close enough. They're specific. And the moment when you look at something and think, yeah, this actually fits this student, that's when you know you're using AI right. I think it's important to say this before we go. You're navigating a job that is changing fast. New tools, new expectations, new decisions that most likely nobody trained you for. And you're doing your best inside of all of that. So it's not about being perfect. It's about staying aware. Asking, does this actually match my student? Do I actually believe this? Because that's the part no tool can do for you. And that is the part that matters so much. Okay, let me leap down from my soapbox now. I can't wait to hear what you think about this episode. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll catch you next time in the Special Educators Resource Room. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'm dying to ask, what'd you think? Be sure to hit the follow or subscribe buttons so that you never miss an episode. You can find the show notes and links for everything mentioned in this episode at positivelylearningblog.com. See you next week for more special education solutions.